Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling completely drained, not because of what was said, but because you felt the need to react? We live in a world where reacting feels automatic. Someone insults us, we fire back. Someone challenges us, we rush to defend our opinions. But have you ever paused and asked yourself, is this even worth my energy? From a young age, we're taught that silence is weakness, that if someone disrespects you, you must respond. But here's a deeper truth. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. This isn't about being passive or indifferent. It's about choosing peace over pride. In Buddhist teachings, the mind that doesn't react is the mind that is free. And that's not just philosophy. It's a practice, a discipline, a choice made in every moment when someone pushes your buttons. Think of your attention like sacred fuel. Every time you argue, every time you get caught in a petty fight, you're pouring that fuel into a fire that leads nowhere. And when the fire burns out, what are you left with? Exhaustion, regret, emptiness. But what if we told you there's a different way? A way to reclaim your peace by mastering the art of ignoring, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. To see the game, but choose not to play it. To feel the sting of a comment, but not let it poison your spirit. The forgotten power we'll explore today is not loud. It doesn't shout or prove itself. It simply chooses. Chooses when to engage and when to let go. And in that choice lies your true strength. So today, let's look deeper into the power of non-reaction and how it might be the missing key to the peace you've been searching for all along. Let me ask you something honest. How many times have you gotten pulled into an argument, not because it mattered, but simply because someone wanted a reaction from you? It happens more than we realize. We think we're standing up for ourselves. We think we're defending truth or justice. But in many cases, the other person wasn't seeking understanding. They were seeking control. They wanted to know they could stir you, that they could press a button and you'd light up like a firecracker. And every time we react instantly, we're doing exactly what they wanted. It's like being in a boat and someone throws a rock at you. Instead of staying on course, you stop paddling, bend over to grab that rock, and throw it back. Now both of you are stuck, distracted, off track, and exhausted, while the destination you were heading to fades in the distance. This is what reactive behavior does to us. It steals our peace, our direction, our energy. And often we don't even realize it. Why? Because we've been trained, subtly over time, to believe that if we don't respond, we're weak. But here's a truth worth repeating. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom in action. There's a powerful story from Buddhist tradition. A man is walking down the street when another person starts shouting at him, angry, insulting, trying to provoke. But instead of shouting back, the man simply smiles and continues walking. A bystander, shocked, asks why he didn't respond. And the man says, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does the gift still belong?" Let that sink in. The anger, the judgment, the insults, they are gifts of poison. But they only enter your heart if you receive them. If you don't, they stay with the one who gave them. That's the art of non-reaction. And no, it's not about being emotionally numb. It's about recognizing that not every battle is yours to fight. We live in a culture that rewards noise. The louder you are, the more people notice. But the truth is, loudness often comes from insecurity. Real strength doesn't need to be proven. It just is. So what if next time someone tries to provoke you, you do something different? What if you pause? What if you breathe? What if instead of reacting, you observe? Because here's the secret. The one who doesn't react holds the real power. That power doesn't scream. It doesn't retaliate. It simply says, "I see what's happening, but I choose not to let it enter me." And in that moment, you stop being a puppet to others' emotions. You become the mountain, unmoved by the passing wind. Let me be clear. This isn't about avoiding necessary conversations. It's not about letting people walk over you. It's about learning which moments deserve your response and which ones are traps dressed as invitations. So ask yourself, is this person genuinely trying to understand me or just trying to control me? Is this worth my peace or just feeding their need to dominate? The more we ask these questions, the more we begin to reclaim something priceless, our inner stillness. And that stillness, that calm, aware, rooted presence, is more powerful than any reaction you could ever give. Let's take this idea even further. Reaction isn't just a habit, it's a thief. It quietly robs us of our focus, our peace, and even our purpose. And most of the time, we don't even see it happening. We react so quickly, so automatically, that we confuse reaction with strength. But reaction isn't strength. It's a loss of control. And when someone else can pull you out of your peace with just a few words, it's not them who hold power, it's you who handed it over. Why do we react so easily? Because ego is always on high alert. It wants to defend. It wants to win. It whispers, "Don't let them get away with that. Don't stay silent. You'll look weak." But let's be honest. How many times has reacting actually solved anything? How many heated arguments ended with both sides saying, "Wow, I really feel seen and understood now"? Almost never. Why? Because most arguments aren't about truth. They're about identity. We don't just hear someone disagreeing with our opinion. We feel like they're attacking who we are. And so we fight. Not to connect, but to protect. Not to understand, but to be validated. This is where the cycle begins. Someone's bad mood spills onto us. Their unresolved emotions, anger, insecurity, stress, come out as criticism, sarcasm, or provocation. And we absorb it. We mirror it. What started as a passing moment becomes a battlefield of egos. The original topic doesn't even matter anymore. Now, it's about who's louder, who's right, who can win. But here's a tough question. Win what? What do we really gain by proving a point to someone who was never listening? In the end, all we often walk away with is tension, resentment, and emotional fatigue. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment. And one of the most overlooked forms of attachment is our need to be understood. Our need to defend our perspective. Our belief that someone else's disagreement somehow invalidates our truth. But what if we could let go of that? What if someone's inability to understand you didn't shake your confidence? What if silence didn't mean defeat, but wisdom? Because the truth is, you don't need every voice to echo yours. Your peace doesn't depend on universal agreement. It depends on internal stability. And this is where the power of non-reaction truly comes alive. It's not just about walking away. It's about recognizing the cost of reacting and choosing not to pay it. It's about noticing when you're being pulled into a loop of conflict and pausing long enough to ask, is this moment worth my energy? And if the answer is no, walk away not with bitterness, but with freedom. This is a practice, a discipline, and like all things worth mastering, it takes time. At first, you may feel like you're suppressing yourself, but over time, you'll realize you're not holding back, you're holding power. You're not avoiding the fight. You're refusing to be manipulated by energy that was never yours to carry. This isn't about letting people get away with disrespect. It's about responding from clarity, not from impulse. It's about asking, what deserves my voice and what simply doesn't? Because not every insult is an attack, not every challenge is a war, and not every comment deserves your comment back. There is a saying in Buddhist thought, the wind can stir the dust, but it cannot move the mountain. You don't have to become the dust. You can become the mountain. Still, rooted, unaffected by noise. And when you live from that space, when you no longer get pulled into every drama, every insult, every need to defend yourself, something incredible happens. You reclaim your energy, you reclaim your direction, and most importantly, you reclaim yourself. There is a rare kind of freedom that most people will never taste, not because it's impossible, but because we're too distracted to recognize it. It's the freedom that comes when you realize you don't have to react, not to every opinion, not to every insult, not to every emotion that rises inside of you. It sounds simple, but in practice, it's revolutionary. Think about how most people go through their day. Someone cuts them off in traffic, they get angry. A coworker makes a passive comment, they stew on it for hours. Someone online disagrees with them, and suddenly their peace is gone. Why? Because they've never been taught that peace is a choice. They've been trained to believe that emotions are automatic and reactions are required. But they're not. Every time you pause instead of react, every time you observe instead of engage, you're reclaiming your freedom. You're choosing to be rooted in awareness instead of being hijacked by impulse. There's something incredibly powerful about not needing to respond, not because you're afraid to speak, but because you understand the value of your silence. When you stop reacting, you begin to notice things that most people miss. You start to see that many arguments aren't even about the topic. They're about people needing validation, needing to feel important, needing to discharge emotions they never processed. You begin to realize, this has nothing to do with me. This isn't my energy to carry. That realization alone can transform your life, because when you're no longer at the mercy of other people's behavior or your own emotional spikes, you start to move through the world differently, more calmly, more clearly, more freely. This is the path of the non-reactive mind. Buddhism teaches that we suffer because of attachment. Attachment to being right, to being seen, to being understood. But when we drop that attachment, we also drop the chains that keep us reactive. And something beautiful happens in its place. You become unshakable, not cold, not numb, but clear. You still feel everything, but you don't let every feeling pull you into conflict. You still hear the noise, but you don't invite it into your peace. There's a story of a Zen master who was insulted by a student. The student shouted, trying to provoke a response, but the master remained calm. Finally, the student asked, "Don't you have anything to say?" And the master replied, "Why should I let your storm enter my sky?" That's what freedom looks like. A mind that doesn't block out life, but one that chooses what it allows in. Now let's be honest, this isn't always easy. Sometimes your ego wants to jump in. It wants to be heard, defended, acknowledged. But remember, ego feeds on reaction. Peace feeds on restraint. You are not weak for walking away. You are not passive for choosing silence. You are powerful because you know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop reacting to everything, people around you change too. Those who used to provoke you, stop. Those who argued with you lose interest. And new people, calmer, wiser, more intentional, begin to gravitate toward your energy. Because peace is magnetic. And once you've tasted the freedom of a non-reactive mind, you'll never want to give it up. So next time you feel the urge to snap back, to argue, to prove your point, ask yourself this: is this worth my peace? And if the answer is no, smile, breathe, and stay free. Not everything deserves your voice, but some things absolutely do. This is the delicate balance we must learn. When is silence wisdom? And when is it avoidance? When is speaking up powerful? And when is it just ego? Most people struggle with this. We stay silent when we should speak, and we speak when silence would have served us better. Why? Because we often mistake emotional urgency for truth. We let our feelings rush ahead of our clarity, and so we react. But there's a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is immediate. It's driven by emotion. It wants to defend, prove, or punish. Response is intentional. It's calm. It considers, is what I'm about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? In Buddhism, this simple threefold filter, truth, necessity, and kindness, is a guidepost. And when we pause long enough to ask these questions, our words become more than noise. They become tools for healing, for clarity, for peace. So let's start with silence. Silence isn't the absence of a response, it's the presence of discernment. There are times when staying silent isn't weakness, it's strength. Because silence can hold space. It can disarm anger. It can stop a cycle before it even begins. Imagine someone attacking you verbally, trying to provoke you. They expect you to fight back. But instead, you say nothing. You hold steady. Their energy bounces off your calm. That silence becomes a mirror. They see themselves, and without fuel, their fire dies down. But here's the challenge. Silence only becomes wisdom when it comes from awareness, not fear. Avoiding a difficult conversation out of discomfort is not the same as choosing silence out of strength. So how do you know when it's time to speak? The answer lies in intention. Ask yourself, am I speaking to defend my ego or to protect a boundary? Am I speaking to hurt or to heal? Am I speaking to be understood or to truly connect? Sometimes silence can harm. When we witness injustice, when someone crosses a boundary, when our voice can prevent suffering and we withhold it, that silence becomes complicity. You see, non-reaction doesn't mean non-engagement. It means choosing your moment with wisdom. It means knowing that your voice is sacred and using it with care. There will be times when speaking is necessary, when someone is being disrespected, when your truth needs to be heard, when your words can change the course of a conversation or a life. And in those moments, silence is not noble. It's irresponsible. True mastery is not about being quiet all the time. It's about knowing when your words are medicine and when they are poison. Because words carry weight. They build. They break. They reveal who we are. And too often we use them without thought. We speak just to fill space, to avoid discomfort, to win. But wisdom teaches us, not every discomfort is meant to be avoided. Some are meant to be understood. So what does this mean in practice? It means that before you speak, especially in a moment of emotion, you pause, you breathe, you ask, is what I'm about to say aligned with my values? Will it create peace or more chaos? If the answer is chaos, wait. Hold your words. Let your inner storm settle. If the answer is peace, speak. Speak with love. Speak with firmness. Speak with clarity. There's a story of a monk who was insulted by a passerby. The monk simply smiled. Later, another monk asked, "Why didn't you defend yourself?" He said, "If someone tries to give me anger and I don't accept it, who does it belong to?" That is the power of knowing when to be still. But the same monk, on another day, saw someone being mistreated, and he spoke firmly, with compassion, because his silence in that moment would have allowed harm. This is balance. This is mindfulness in speech, and it requires constant practice. Because every day you'll be presented with situations, small and large, where you must choose. Do I speak? Do I stay silent? And each time, you build a habit. You train your inner compass. Over time, it becomes easier to discern. You'll find yourself walking away from arguments that don't matter, and walking into conversations that do. You'll use fewer words, but they'll carry more impact. You'll speak less often, but when you do, people will listen, because they'll feel your intention. They'll trust your voice, because it's no longer reactive, It's rooted. So remember, your voice is not something to throw around. It's not a weapon. It's a tool. Learn when to sharpen it and when to sheath it. And when in doubt, ask yourself, is this coming from love or from fear? Because that one question will guide you to the truth every time. Let's look at conflict through a new lens, not as a clash of ideas, but as the surfacing of emotional baggage. Because the truth is, most conflicts aren't really about the issue at hand. They're about what people are carrying into the conversation. Think about it. Have you ever snapped at someone over something small, only to realize later that your frustration had nothing to do with them? Maybe you had a stressful day. Maybe you were already overwhelmed. That minor comment? It just hit the wrong nerve. Now flip that around. How often has someone come at you with unexpected anger or criticism, and you wondered, where is this coming from? The answer? It often comes from unprocessed emotions. We all carry emotional baggage: grief, resentment, insecurity, fear. And most of the time it's invisible, until something triggers it. Then it spills out, not in a calm request or thoughtful dialogue, but in the form of passive aggression, sarcasm, shouting, or withdrawal. And if we're not mindful, we absorb it. We react. We match their energy. And suddenly, we're in a conflict that has nothing to do with what's actually being said. This is the cycle. One person releases their emotional weight. The other catches it, adds their own, and throws it back. Round and round it goes. But here's the good news. You can break that cycle. You don't have to be the emotional dumping ground for someone else's unresolved pain. And you don't have to pass your pain on to others either. The first step is awareness. When someone comes at you with intensity, pause and ask, is this really about me? Or are they speaking from their pain? That question alone can shift everything. Because when you recognize that their anger isn't about you, it's about them, you stop taking it personally. And that's where your power begins. You can say to yourself, I don't need to catch what they're throwing. This isn't my energy to carry. And suddenly, their attempt to start a conflict hits a wall of calm instead of a fire of reaction. You've changed the dynamic. You've stepped out of the loop. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It means you respond with intention, not impulse. Sometimes the best response isn't silence. It's a boundary, spoken calmly. I'm not going to have this conversation while emotions are high. Let's revisit this later when we're both in a better space. Or even, I hear that you're upset. I'm open to talking when it feels more respectful. These are not signs of avoidance. They are strategies of emotional intelligence. They show that you're not afraid of the issue. You're simply not willing to engage in a destructive format. You're choosing clarity over chaos. Another important tool is detachment. Not the cold, distant kind, but the compassionate kind. You remind yourself, what they're feeling belongs to them. What I'm feeling belongs to me. This separation is healthy. It allows you to stay grounded while holding space for what's really happening, underneath the words, beneath the tension. Because beneath every conflict is almost always a wound. Someone feels unheard. Someone feels unseen. Someone feels unloved. And what looks like aggression is often a cry for connection. So what if we trained ourselves to listen differently? What if we listened not just to the words, but to the pain behind them? The fear, the exhaustion, the years of emotional weight someone's been carrying in silence. This is not to excuse toxic behavior, but to help you see that most people are reacting from places they haven't yet healed. And when you can see that, you no longer react. You respond with wisdom. Sometimes that wisdom will tell you to walk away. Other times, it will guide you to speak with kindness. But either way, your response is no longer automatic. It's intentional. You're no longer playing ping pong with pain. You're not passing the fire back. You're choosing to let it stop with you. And when you do this, consistently, something beautiful happens. You stop being emotionally drained by other people's storms. You stop entering battles you never asked to fight. You begin to conserve your energy for what actually matters. And more than that, you become someone who others feel safe around. Not because you let them do whatever they want, but because they sense your calm, your grounded presence, your refusal to escalate. In a world that runs on reaction, that kind of stillness is magnetic. It changes rooms. It changes relationships. It changes you. So next time you feel tension rising, whether in yourself or someone else, pause. Don't ask, "How do I win this?" Ask, "What is this really about? What am I feeling beneath the surface? What is this person not saying out loud?" Because when you start listening with this level of presence, you stop engaging in surface-level conflict. You begin navigating the conversation beneath the words, and that's where real transformation happens. You become the person who no longer adds to the chaos, but who diffuses it, not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. Imagine this: waking up each day knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what anyone says or does, your peace remains untouched. You're not numb. You're not disconnected. You're simply centered, anchored deep within yourself. That is the power of the unshakable mind. But let's be honest, most people don't live this way. We live on edge. One unexpected comment can ruin our whole day. One piece of bad news can throw us off course. One mistake and suddenly our confidence collapses. Why? Because we've built our sense of peace on something fragile, external conditions. We wait for others to agree with us to feel valid. We need circumstances to go our way to feel safe. We rely on routines, praise, productivity, anything to keep us feeling okay. But here's the truth. Anything external is temporary. And when your peace is tied to the temporary, your mind will always be unstable. So what does it mean to cultivate a mind that doesn't shake? It means you begin to shift your anchor point from the outside to the inside. You stop trying to control the world. You start learning how to hold your center regardless of what the world does. This is not passive. This is powerful. Buddhism teaches that inner stability comes not from resisting life, but from observing it with clarity. You train the mind like you would train a muscle, through consistency, patience, and self-awareness. Let's talk about how. 1. Observation without judgment. The next time you feel angry, anxious, or insecure, pause. Instead of reacting, take a moment to simply observe. Ask, what am I feeling? Where is it coming from? Is it true or just a passing storm? Most of our emotions aren't permanent truths. They're weather patterns, intense but temporary. And the more you learn to witness without becoming, the more grounded you become. You're no longer the storm, you're the sky, too. Detachment from outcome. Inner peace is often disturbed by attachment to results. We want things to turn out a certain way, and when they don't, we spiral. But when you train yourself to show up fully, do your best, and let go of the outcome, something incredible happens. You stop riding emotional roller coasters. You start walking steadily, knowing your worth isn't tied to winning or approval. Freedom is not the ability to control everything. It's the ability to remain calm when you can't. 3. Daily mental hygiene. Just like your body needs movement, your mind needs care. Meditation, journaling, breath work. These aren't luxuries. They're maintenance. Even 5 minutes a day of stillness can retrain your nervous system to feel safe in silence. You create space between stimulus and response, and in that space, you regain your power. You don't need to sit in a cave to cultivate inner peace. You need to make it a habit. 4. Surrounding yourself with peaceful inputs. Your environment shapes your mental state. If your life is filled with noise, negative news, constant arguments, toxic relationships, it becomes much harder to stay centered. You don't have to control everything, but you can make choices. Choose who you listen to. Choose what you consume. Choose stillness over stimulation when possible. And you'll notice, the more peace you invite in, the more peace you naturally radiate. Redefining strength. We often confuse strength with dominance, being louder, tougher, always having the last word. But true strength is calm under pressure. It's patience when provoked. It's choosing not to react, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know what matters. There's a saying in Buddhist philosophy, "The wise remain still, even when the world trembles." Let that be your practice. Let that be your power. So where do you begin? Right here, right now, by making a quiet decision. I will no longer let the chaos around me dictate the peace within me. You'll forget. You'll slip. That's okay. Every time you return to your breath, every time you pause before reacting, every time you reflect instead of explode, you're training your unshakable mind. And it gets stronger. Slowly but surely, you become the one who doesn't get rattled by storms. Because you've become the mountain. Still, solid, centered. Not because life is perfect, but because your inner world no longer needs it to be. This is the freedom most people chase externally, but never find, because it was always inside them. And when you discover it, you'll never trade it for anything again. Let's take a moment to sit with a simple truth. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every opinion needs a response. Not every disagreement is worth your energy. Not every argument is a doorway to growth. Some are just traps wrapped in ego. But here's what's often misunderstood. Choosing not to react doesn't mean you're avoiding life. It means you're choosing how to live it, on your terms, with presence, with peace. One of the greatest signs of inner maturity is when you stop getting pulled into everything that asks for your attention and start responding only to what truly deserves it. That's the real strength. That's the real freedom. You no longer feel the need to jump into every debate. You no longer feel the urge to prove yourself every time someone challenges you. You stop chasing validation and start curating your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And in this space of clarity, you begin to ask better questions. Not, how can I win this argument? But, is this worth my peace? Is this reaction going to bring me closer to truth, or just deeper into chaos? This is what it means to live with discernment. You become selective, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not because you don't care, but because you care deeply about what you allow into your inner world. Think of your mind like a home. Would you leave your front door wide open, letting anyone walk in and throw mud on the floor? Of course not. So why do we do that with our thoughts and emotions? Why do we let every insult, every opinion, every external noise enter and rearrange our inner peace? The truth is, you can close the door. You can choose silence over argument, stillness over impulse, presence over performance. And that choice? It's not weakness, it's mastery. There's a line in Buddhist teaching that says, "A wise person does not get angry when provoked, nor elated when praised." Why? Because both are forms of attachment, one to validation, one to defense, and both can be dropped if we see clearly. So what would happen if you stopped reacting to things that don't matter? What if you gave yourself permission to walk away from noise without guilt? To say no to the drama, not with anger, but with calm detachment? You'd begin to feel something most people rarely touch: inner freedom. Not freedom that depends on success, agreement, or approval, but freedom that arises from within, a deep, unwavering peace that no one can take from you. This is the peak of wisdom, Not knowing everything, but knowing what to ignore. Not controlling the world, but mastering your response to it. So the next time conflict comes knocking, take a breath. Ask yourself, do I want to give this my energy? Or do I want to keep that energy for something that truly matters? Because the truth is, your attention is one of the most precious things you have. Spend it where it counts. Protect it like treasure. And always, always return to what brings you peace. Because in the end, your peace is not just an emotional state. It is your compass, your protection, your power. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, if even one sentence helped you pause, reflect, or feel more at peace, then I invite you to carry this wisdom forward, not just in thought, but in action. Share it with someone who might need it. Sometimes all it takes is a small shift in perspective to change an entire day, or even a life. And if you'd like to keep walking this path of mindfulness, clarity, and inner stillness with us, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Buddha's Quiet Path, and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment of peace in your feed. Every day, we share reflections rooted in ancient Buddhist wisdom, made simple, relevant, and real for your everyday life. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing peace. Until next time, walk gently and guard your inner light.